10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Good morning and hello again. My name is Richard Hirstwood and this is the last for the moment for my series of talks about sensory approaches for children with additional needs, autism, visual impairments, hearing loss, and lots of other challenges. Today, the subject is sensory stories. And it's something that I've found to be a fabulous tool in my 30 years of experience in sensory work. So sensory stories are something that is very, very close to my heart. Now, you just have to excuse me for one moment while I just switch one thing off over here. One me a second. That's it. Aha, done it. So, as I say, sensory stories are a great vehicle for making sensory work and sensory stimulation not just interesting for the child, but also interesting for us. You see, when we are working with our children, when we are playing with our children, you know that very often they want to do the same thing again, and they want to do it again and again and again. Now, our children need to do the same thing again and again and again. They need that repetition. So let's say we are playing with our favorite toy. This is my little star, and I'm using this for visual stimulation. My child really loves this star, thinks it's great. How do I make this star a little bit more interesting? So put it into a sensory story. And that keeps it interesting for us, and it gives more variance for the child. In other words, it means that they're doing the same thing, but it's kind of different. And that hopefully leads them on to different activities. So now I will share my screen, and I've got some lovely little bits of video to show you today. And I've got a few stories to tell you as well, and a couple of little props, which I hope you'll enjoy seeing. So there we go. We should be sharing that screen right now. And if I just go to there, lovely stuff. Okay. Now, why do we need sensory stories? Well, basically, a sensory story is like any story, but we're actually presenting the narration with different multi-sensory things, you know? It's making sure that we highlight the auditory, the tactile, the taste, the smell, instead of just using words. Now, words are very, very powerful, but instead of just using words, we'll also introduce different types of stimulus. So if I'm going to tell the story of the boy who wanted to catch a star, I'll bring my star across for a visual effect. Or we may touch the star. We may be able to feel it. Because as you are going to find out in the next hour, we are very multisensory in the way that we work. So we've got to bring a little more vision, a little more movement can be very important, as you'll find out a little later on. This is going to have a lot more meaning, because the other thing that I will tell you about this morning is what our children get from a sensory story. And it might not be what you think. You know, very often we are telling a story and we are thinking that they understand the story. Well, it may be they don't. They understand parts, but the really valuable experience for our children is just the fact that we are there. We are communicating. We are offering different kinds of sensory stimulation. I've talked about sensory stimulation in previous talks, and as I've said, for many of our children who are autistic or have autism, sensory stimulation is about trying to help them deal with the bombardment of sound clutter, visual clutter, everything coming in. With more complex needs, visual impairments, hearing loss, dual sensory impairments, our wheelchair users, and some of our more high dependency children, then that's about getting the sensory system working. It's about getting that sensory system into action. So sensory stories will help us do that. It helps us to reinforce certain elements of the story. So we need to have multi-sensory stories. Here's a multi-sensory story I did, I think this was just last year in Australia. Are you ready? Shall I tell you a great story? Some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different coloured days. Anna, are you ready? Whoa. So what I'm doing here, I'm telling the story, I'm being very repetitive, I'm using lots of visual stimulation. What Hannah is responding to is my voice, the fact I'm there. She needs lots of visual stimulation, and the vehicle, the story, is what is making this session work. Some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'll be surprised how many ways I change on different coloured days. Whoa, Hannah, leave the body where it is. Hannah, it's gone. Where's it gone? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, Hannah. Now you see there, when I bring the story back, I'm looking for the changes in her body language, waiting for that anticipation. This is all great communication. Days and different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different coloured days. Absolutely. Wow, you got it again. Anna, are you ready? Let's do our story again. Some days are yellow. Repetition is so important. I will go again and again and again. And look, Hannah's not getting bored of this. We are. She isn't. I change on different coloured days. Wow, brilliant. So she's really, really responding to the interaction. If I just sat there with a little light, would that have the same sort of effect? No, I think the repetition of the words I was using there, the light, the umbrella, getting everything nice and close to her really, really, really helps. So let's have a look. Now, do you need a sensory room for sensory stories? No, of course you don't, because every room is a sensory room. You know, everywhere is a different kind of room. We can do sensory stories outside. We can do them in the lounge. We can do them wherever you want. Just as a lot of you, if you've watched any of my talks before, you will know that I love umbrellas and I love tents. I love all those kind of things because different environments with the same story make things really interesting. The book I was using there, by the way, I'll show you a little more detail later on, but if you can see it on this little screen there, Many Colored Days by Dr. Seuss. I've never been a fan of Dr. Seuss in particular, but I have to say that this book I find really good because it is so easy, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, it's so easy to read. It is just so simple. And it's some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different colored days. On bright red days, how good it feels to be a horse and kick my heels. On other days, I'm other things. On bright blue days, I flap my wings. There's lots of opportunities there to have different colors, have different textures, touching things that are red, listening to sounds that sound blue. You could do lots of things like that. So, a sensory story. For all learners with or without special educational needs, sensory stories can be much more meaningful than stories read in the traditional manner. A learner with a hearing impairment is given the opportunity to experience the story using their stronger sensory skills, like feeling and seeing the story, rather than experiencing the story purely and only with their impaired sensory modality. Multisensory presentation of a story scaffolds the weaker sensory skills, helping the learner to use their more dominant, stronger sensory skills. By the way, if you haven't seen it, let's just go back. That is a lovely idea for home sensory. There are just plastic cups, nice clear ones, and you just get some little lights and you can see all they've done there is put the lights through the bottom of the cups, and you can actually make up a whole circle with this. But that's just lovely for home sensory. A really, really, really nice idea. Works fantastically well. Also in this video, you can see there, we're using tents. Now we're using a lot of tents, and if anybody's coming to the Sensory Festival at the weekend, I'm showing a new kind of tent, which is just absolutely fabulous. Because, do you know, a lot of times I think for our children, it is difficult for them to imagine. It's difficult. We talked about play last week, and I was saying that for a lot of our children, they need to learn to play. They need to learn to be imaginative. If you're dealing with a lot of what we call interoception, a lot of pain, a lot of sensory bombardment, then play isn't high on your list. So a sensory story can help our children become more imaginative.
Hello, my name is Gwyneth, and I'll be your professor today. And I will be talking about the brain. Hello, I'm your veterinarian today. Nope, I'm Dr. Brooklyn. See?
Okay, doctor.
Oh, here, let me see. Good morning, everyone. I'm your new coach. My name is Maddie. Nice to meet you. I had the most fantastic day in the office. You'll never believe what happened. Got that new business I wanted. You ever seen a fly?
Anything what?
Fly?
No.
My cat can fly.
Okay.
The dog's brain can't think as much as the human's brain because there's no high school for the dog. This is Peter, the Triceratops. Peter is 1 year old. The T-Rex, Sally, is 1,200,252 years old. He's up like a unicorn. Higher, higher. I've been to New York, Pennsylvania. We can think and do lots of stuff with our brain. Now, does anybody know how big the brain is? Anybody? Sophia. It is medium. Medium? Very good.
Getting our children to be imaginative, getting our children to understand stories is very, very important because it also has a big, big impact on their communication skills. But of course, there could be sensory loss. Now, this can mean a lot of different things. If there is a sensory loss, we definitely need to be multi-sensory in the way that we actually do our story. So to give you an example, let me just go off my sharing here. And if I am to, just get there. if I'm to just work with a child who has autism or is autistic, what I may be doing, I'll maybe use a book to encourage them to look at faces. And here's one of my favorite face books. It's called Face to Face. It's got a big green bit, so it'll just go completely see-through, which isn't great. But nevertheless, my Facebook is just magic. Now, those of you who are there going, my kids would rip that apart. Yes, sometimes I'm going to be a little bit careful who I actually use this with. But this could be wonderful for encouraging our children to look at faces. You see, a child who has autism may not want to look at faces at all. But here's some faces that could just be really, really interesting. And of course, when I was talking about play last week, I talked a lot about using mirrors. Using mirrors with stories is another way that we can really do faces. So let's go back to the presentation and share my screen. And I was just beginning to talk about sensory loss. Okay. A sensory loss can mean that our learners experience a traditionally read story in a very different way. When working with our learners with a visual loss, it may be about positioning, because when you have a visual loss, some of our learners see better from one side or the other side. So getting the positioning right is really important. Some of our learners with autism may be overwhelmed by some of the lighting in the space. And then there's the sound. A learner with a hearing loss may find it difficult to understand the language. A learner who has autism may be overwhelmed by the sounds of everything around them. In a mainstream setting, a learner may have a moderate sensory loss, but it's still important to make the stories, make the subject multisensory, so it's appropriate for everybody. When we talk about making it appropriate, what we have to remember when we're doing a story is that there will be different levels of understanding. So I may be here doing some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. We may have a child who is at a very, very early skills stage. So they are experiencing the sensory part of it. They will hear the tone of my voice. They may even recognize it's a different voice to that of their parents. They may see the visual torches and little lights and things that I use, but they really don't understand the story. They don't have the concept of colors, but the story is still very valuable to them because this is how they begin to learn. This is how we all begin to learn about sensory. So if I'm doing Once There Was a Boy, and the boy loved stars very much. Now this way, a level 1 experiential child will see the star. And they may see the star is moving. They may begin to develop their tracking skills and they may enjoy that, but they don't understand it's a story. At level 2, we're understanding elements of it. So the child may know that that is called a star. They may not know that it's a star that's in the sky, and they may not link the star to the story, but they actually understand that, oh yeah, that thing's called a star. I recognize that shape, but they don't really understand the full context of the story. So they're a step further on than our experiential learners. They're understanding parts of it. They may recognize the different colors, but they don't correlate that and relate that to the story itself. Our level 3 learners, those are the children who are going to experience the whole story, the whole thing. And they will get the story, they will understand our voice, our repetition, our anticipation, all of our waiting. They understand all of that. Whatever level you are, level 1, 2, or 3, a sensory story is really very, very, very valuable. Here's a lovely idea. Have a look
Here's
at
a great
this.
idea from Fenton School in Wales. The team there, wonderful. Look at this, stories on a string. I like this. They're doing the Gruffalo, and they have this theme throughout a couple of classrooms. But I thought this was a fantastic idea. Just some nice little cones there with broom handles, very posh ones though, pushed into them. And you just put a string right the way down, and then you can make your story really tactile, really visual for suiting those different learning styles. And of course, it puts the story at wheelchair height as well, which is really handy for those kids who just need to get the story really, really close. Fantastic for our ASD kids because we've got a nice sequence of events. It's wonderful because it means our visually impaired children can really get a feel for the story. I like this idea because it's dead easy and it's dead cheap.
So a great example there of a wonderful example of making a story very tactile as well as visual. The other thing about story strings is you retain the sequence of events. You know, you can see here that as you go down the string, you have one event happening after the other. And this is something you can do at home using clothes pegs, using bits of line, bits of rope there. You can create a wonderful sequence. Now, the other thing about stories is they encourage our children to understand sequencing. Understanding sequencing is very important in your daily life. Do you often do, well, you'll do many things in a particular order. You'll do this, then that, then that, then that. And that's part of normal life. Stories can help our children understand sequencing skills. Story strings are a big reinforcement for sequencing. So we receive and we express communication in a multi-sensory way. So we need to make our stories really multi-sensory. Making a story sensory helps our learners make sense of the world. I mentioned happiness boxes when I was talking about difficult and challenging behavior earlier this week. And here's a variation on a happiness box. It's just a box. This looks like a fruit box. And we've got props in there for our sensory story. There's also a lovely backdrop. So if you're doing a story about under the sea, then you can just pull it out of a box. An idea I showed a little while ago was just using boxes with little finger puppets. And I'll only do this small, but here you go. You can, on the little screen, you can see there, I've just got a little mouse, my finger put through the puppet, and there is my little mouse in the box. And then the lid closes. And, you know, a box like this, when the lid closes, that encourages our children to understand it's finished. It's stopped. And that's something that a lot of our children need to learn, that there is a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end to some activities. How many times do our children, if they're really enjoying something, especially our children who are autistic or have autism, how many times will we find it very difficult to actually get them to stop? And that's often because they don't understand the concept of stopping. They don't realize that we have to stop at a certain time. They don't realize that it's time to do something else. Sensory stories, when we finish a sensory story, that helps to reinforce our communication and understanding. It's finished. Stop. Now, vision. let's go through the senses. Vision is our major coordinating sense. Now, these books, The Game of Shadows and The Game in the Dark, these are absolutely wonderful books. In fact, shall I show you the video or shall I show you them for real? Tell you what, let's be daring. I'll show you these for real. So if I just go stop share, boom, there we go, and get myself out of this and get myself back on the screen here. Way, yeah, I can see me now. Let me show you these books. These are lovely. The author of these books, he's either from Belgium or France, and he's called Hervé Toulet. Now, Hervé Toulet, let's show you that there. And this is a lovely book. This one is called The Game of Light. Now, The Game of Light is a gorgeous one. It's really, really cool. And I will just have to turn off my green screen to show you this. So let me just go to choose virtual background. And I'm just going to whiz up there. There we go. Now, oh, that's what's really behind me. The Game of Light is simply pages with holes cut out of them. But if we use a mobile phone, now a mobile phone is best for this. You could use a torch, but very often I find your phone is a lot better. So I've just disappeared off the screen to grab a phone. Here we go. And what I can do now is I'll just get my flashlight, my torch on my phone. So if I just go there, and get my torch, you can see there. So I'm on my little iPhone there. This works on Android as well. And you just see there, I can project the story onto the wall simply using a mobile phone torch. That can work really, really well. So the story goes, in the daytime, everything is bright. But at night, when you turn out the lights, flowers bloom on the ceiling. Let's have a look. Let's put our flowers up here. By the way, another way to project light like this with a book, with a story, is by simply using a piece of paper. And I think I've shown this before. A lot of times when we are, this is where I need 5 hands, but nevertheless, here we go. Let's put that to there, get that there. And I've just got my bit of paper in the front there. Is that coming out? No, it's not. If I come back a bit, hey, you're going to have to believe me, I'm afraid, because it's not coming out very well. But very often I'll use a piece of paper and I will simply project. Oh, there you go. There you go. We just got it there. Just see, I just had it for a moment, but I can back project on there. So using books that are kind of stencils is a really, really good idea. Hervé Toulet has done another magical one. This one is called The Game in the Dark. The Game in the Dark is, I say magical because it is. This one, basically, I'm going to dim my lights a little bit here. This is a glow in the dark book. So let's just take that out, take that out. And for this, I need to get myself a ultraviolet torch, UV torch. In the UK, we get these on Amazon, but you'll be able to get these locally just about anywhere. The difference is you can see the light is purple. Now, often these are used for detecting forged banknotes and things like that, but UV torches in the United Kingdom cost us very little money, probably £5 or so. Now, this book, The Game in the Dark. I'll just open that up. And what do you see? You see very little. But The Game in the Dark relies on us being able to use the UV light and then just shine it across there. So it's a reveal. So basically you can light up your pages, which is just fabulous. So you look on there, you can see very little, but as I bring that UV torch across, there you go, the book is revealed. It is a wonderful way to do stories because it's quite magical. It's quite something that's really different. Now, Hervé Toulet has got lots of different books. Let's go and put some studio lighting on again so we can actually see what we're doing. Get myself back there, get back there, that's it. He's done lots of different books because it's not just about vision, but vision is, as I said before, your major coordinating sense. But he's done lots of books which are tactile, touchy-feely, lots of books which you can make incredible sounds from. You see, another really nice visual book is this one. This one is called The World of Mirrors. And The World of Mirrors features the most important person in the world, and that is you. So you can see yourself in this particular book. Whichever page you're on, you are featured on that page, which is just fantastic to do. It's really, really nice. So let's just put my green screen back in, although it looks like it was going to fail quite badly there. Let's have a look here. Hang on a second. So kick that in, and I'm just going to rekey this again. So try that. It's better. Feeling nearly normal again. So, oh, my shirt's going green now. Anyway, but that's a fab book. Hervé Toulet does some lovely books. And vision is, without doubt, your major coordinating sense. It's the one we do the most with. Now, the only other thing I would say is sound, hearing. Those of you who've seen me before know that I have a hearing loss. And I find high frequency sounds quite difficult, but once I get accustomed to an environment, I hear reasonably well. I don't have to wear hearing aids all the time, but do sometimes. So sound can really, really help. If a child has a hearing loss, we need to stimulate the hearing. So bring sound into a story. Now, one way to bring sound into a story is to use a story with music. And here's a story that I really enjoy doing. And with the right kind of music, this story can work extremely well. Just going to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. The story is called To Catch a Star. And it's by an author called Oliver Jeffers. So let me put it up here and let's see if we can do this. Here we go. Wait. Let's go on back. And go back a slide there. Give myself some volume. Oh, I'm just going to start that again. Won't be a minute. Go. Here we go. So once again, the story is To Catch a Star, and it's by Oliver Jeffers. And with a bit of music, it works really, really well. Once there was a boy, and the boy loved stars very much. Every night, the boy watched the stars from his window, and he wished he had one of his very own. He dreamed how this star might be his friend. They would play hide and go seek and take long walks together. The boy decided he would try to catch a star. He thought that getting up early in the morning would be best, because then the star would be tired from being up in the sky all night. So the next day, he set out at sunrise, but he couldn't see a star anywhere. He sat down and he waited for one to appear. He waited and he waited and ate lunch and waited. And after dinner, he waited some more. Finally, just before the sun was about to go away, he saw a star. The boy tried to jump up and grab it, but he could not jump high enough. So, very carefully, he climbed to the top of the tallest tree he could find, but the star was still way out of reach. He thought he might lasso the star with the lifebelt from his father's boat, but it was much too heavy for him to carry. He thought he could fly up in his spaceship and just grab the star, but his spaceship had run out of petrol last Tuesday when he flew to the moon. He thought he could get a seagull to help him fly up into the sky to reach his star, but the only seagull he could find didn't want to help at all. The boy thought he would never catch a star. But just then, he noticed something floating in the water. It was the prettiest star he had ever seen. Just a baby star. It must have fallen from the sky. He tried to fish the star out with his hands, but he couldn't reach it. Then he had an idea. The star might wash up on the shore. He ran back along the jetty to the beach. Then he waited and walked and watched and waited. And sure enough, the star washed up on the bright golden sand. The boy had caught a star of his very own.
You with the sad eyes, don't be discouraged, though I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it.
So sound really can bring a story to life. It can really help our children really understand what a sensory story is about. I think it's a good idea to make stories smelly, bring some smell into a story, bring some taste into a story. It's fantastic to make it really multisensory. Don't be bombarding. Also, one of the big issues I find is that people think that you've got to get from the start to the end of the book. So if I'm using Many Coloured Days by Dr. Seuss, just grab the book again. This particular book, look, if I tried to go from the front to the back of this, some days are yellow, some days are blue, on different days I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different coloured days. On bright red days, how good it feels to be a horse and kick my heels. On other days, and other things, on bright blue days, I flap my wings. Then comes a yellow day, and I'm just rushing to get through the book. Forget it. Just do a couple of pages. We can do lots of activities around yellow and around blue. I'll show you a couple of ideas in a second, actually. Just do some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different colored days. So you could do all kinds of things with blue things, with yellow things, and change. That's a big one, You could do a good 15, 20 minutes just on a couple of pages. Don't think in sensory stories. It's about going from the front to the back of the book if you're using a book. Now, of course, you don't have to use a book. You could use something like storytelling dice. I really enjoy storytelling dice. Here we go. I've got some here. Now, storytelling dice are really nice. And these, you'd have to track these down. I know where to get these in the United Kingdom, but let's have a look. So there. The witch came down from the sky. She hovered over the top of the house. And then what happens? Oh, I've got a chicken leg. She went into the kitchen and she stole all the chicken. But luckily, we had some apples left. So with storytelling dice, you roll the dice. and you tell the story from there. You could make these yourselves. It makes stories a little bit random, and some of our children who have autism or are autistic, they will tend to prefer stories. See, it does mean that imaginative with about is that not just touch, taste, and smell. I've talked a lot about movement. I've talked a lot about being able to get our children moving, you know. So let me just talk a little bit about how we can get movement into our stories, because that is really, really important. And one of the ways I do it in the main is by using things called scavenger hunts, or using just little trails, different tactile trails. So I will share my screen again. And there we go. Let's try for that one. And there. So vestibular proprioception. I won't go into that now, but this is your movement sense. When I was talking about challenging behavior last Sunday, I talked about how a lot of our people, a lot of our young learners need to move. A lot of our children are very, very fidgety. And you might be just flying through your story, it's going really well, and the child stands up and disappears over here, and you think, oh my goodness, they don't like the story. Yes, they probably do, but they do need to get moving. So why don't you try what we call scavenger hunts? A scavenger hunt can be really something very simple. You could make up bags and collect things. So here's a nature scavenger hunt. Your child is asked to collect something that's fuzzy. Collect 2 kinds of seeds, 2 bits of man-made litter. That can be an interesting one, because you can do that and then discuss where everything actually comes from. If your child is autistic, has autism, try a people watching scavenger hunt to try to get them used to people. You can make great stories with this. Can we find somebody wearing flip-flops or jangles, as they're sometimes known? Can you find, or can you see somebody who's looking at their phone? Somebody with a baby, and you tick them off. This is a brilliant story. It's not a book, but this is getting movement into it. So if I think of my many colored days, then what I may do, I may go, some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different colored days. So now if a child is into iPads, and I've talked about iPads quite a bit, or if they enjoy playing with your mobile phone, then why not take your phone or take your iPad and find and take a picture of 5 things that are yellow, because the first page was all about yellow. So if you don't want to use technology, go and just find 5 things that are yellow. The next color was blue. So take a picture of 5 things beginning with the letter B. So I'm not using the blue there. I'm actually just diverting this into more literacy. So we're looking at finding something that begins with the letter B, because B is the first letter for blue. And of course, you can go on and on and on, but scavenger hunts are fabulous. I'll often have cards like this, so that I've got a nice big card with a picture of something that will help the child find that thing. In this case, that thing that is actually yellow. So scavenger hunts can be a great way to do this. Here's another lovely idea. I've got a book to do this, but this could be an idea that you could actually make. It's really nice.
A few books on YouTube videos, but this one, Find Colours, really, really cool, because I really do like doing scavenger hunts and things like that. I've done a few with iPads and stuff, but this book is quite incredible. The book is by Tamara Shopskin and Jason Fulford. It's called Find Colours. And the interesting thing about this is there aren't any colours in the book at all. What you've got to do is go out and find the colours yourself.
This is a great scavenger hunt. So we decided to go off and try and find some colours ourselves. Let's find blue. Here we are in Morecambe Bay. Right, it's not very blue today, so anyway, oh, green, we did a lot better with green. There you go, some green plants. Oh, fabulous fun. Right, let's try and find some purple. Hang on a minute, there it is. No, that's not purple. There, yeah, that's purple. This is a great book. This means that you can get out of the classroom, you can find multicolours, you can find the colours on the pages, you could get pupils to find their favourite colour, you could give them 3 colours to find. You could do loads with this. You could find colours that are made of circles, colours that are made of squares. There's loads of educational ideas for this. Find Colours by Tamara Shopskin and Jason Fulford. A great book for a scavenger hunt. So you could actually make a book like that, where you're actually just going to find the different colours. Now, let me just stop my share, and I want to show you a couple of ideas because I'm watching the clock now. I've got just 10 minutes left. Here we go, back to meeting. Oh, there I am. Right. Now, another lovely idea, still based around a kind of scavenger hunt, is this. These are called Go Find It cards. Now, these, again, it's a lovely way of doing a sensory story that you could actually make yourself. So here I've got a set of cards. Now, they have a lot of green in them, but what I will do is I will just pick one card. So let's just pick that one, and oh, that was lucky. That was find something that's orange. So now we'd have to go and find something that's orange, but give the child a chance to choose another card, and we might have to find something that is tiny, something that fits there. So we've got to go off and find those things. These are really lovely. It's really random as to what you get. And there's lots. Find something smooth. Find something that goes snap. Find something dry. Find something stripy. You've got lots of different options here. And you could make up some cards of your own at home to, and what you may be doing is asking your child to find their favorite toy, to go and find a little bit of sound. Depending on what they really like, you could base it around that. You could be asking them to find something that helps me be really, really calm. So, Go Find It cards. They're really, really very cool. Now, sensory stories with a lot of our children need spaces that are very controlled. We need to be able, in the words of Professor Paul Paliano from Australia, Cookstown University, when we're working with sensory, we need to be able to increase a stimulus, decrease a stimulus, use it in isolation, or use it in combination with something else. So sometimes we need to think about our storytelling environment. Now, I am a great fan of using umbrellas, and so often I will pull out umbrellas for lots of different reasons. But an umbrella, and I talked about this last week when I was talking about challenging behavior. You know, having an umbrella, there's the green bit, having an umbrella that I can just get behind can often mean that I can cut out all the visual clutter. I can cut out all of that sound clutter. I can get rid of all that clutter. And if I'm doing many colored days, I could have a lovely multicolored umbrella like this. Some days are yellow, some days are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different colored days. Great to get an umbrella to do that. But wait a minute. We can actually create story umbrellas. Now, story umbrellas are fabulous. If I just get that there, put that down there. This is an umbrella that was designed for a boy who loves anything to do with space. So you can see here, now that's driving my green screen absolutely nuts, but you can see here, I've actually got a spaceman inside my umbrella. I also have a little planet which you can't see because it's very dark in here. But this enables me to tell a story all about space. And there is something that our child might really, really enjoy. These can be quite nice. Just a very simple umbrella can be lovely for our children who have autism or are autistic. We don't want too much visual clutter in an umbrella. Keep it nice and simple. Nice thing about umbrellas is they take very little storage space and they pack down to basically nothing. So let's just pop that one away. And I'll show you a big production umbrella. Let me have a look here. Oh, by the way, if anybody has any questions, you might want to start putting them in chat now. If anybody does have a question, because I've only got a couple of minutes left, I can't see anything at the moment, so I'll not worry about it. Here we are. Here's a lovely story umbrella. Let me just get this. Now, this is based on the story of the rainbow fish, which is a very popular story here in the UK. And you can see what I've got here is just a whole collection of things. And this story umbrella has the rainbow fish. Where's my rainbow fish gone? Oh, got tangled up in that. Here we go. Let me just do that. Wow, there's my rainbow fish right there. So this story goes a long way out in the deep blue sea. There lived a fish. Not just an ordinary fish. This was the most beautiful fish in the entire ocean. His scales were every shade of blue and green and purple, with sparkling silver scales among them. So, story umbrellas, story parasols, they can work extremely well. So really, a sensory story isn't just about a book. A sensory story is about experiences, sensory experiences for our children to really help them develop their communication skills, their sensory skills, all of the skills that are their tools for living, the tools that they need to survive in the real world. A sensory story is merely a vehicle for that, for developing your sensory skills. So I'll finish off my little session, my short hour, by just reading you a poem, which I thought was wonderful. I'll just go to there and hopefully go to there. And this is a lovely poem. It's called The Magic Classroom. It's by Chris Mullane. And this was a book called The Power of Diversity from a lady called Barbara Prashnig. It goes like this. This room is like no other. There is magic in the air. It seems kind of disorganized and there's color everywhere. There are beanbags, cushions, couches, some dividers and a screen. And over on the other side, some tables can be seen. Over there beside the window, the sun is shining bright, but near the inside wall, we see there is a lot less light. In the background, there is music for those who learn by sound, and earmuffs are here for those who are the other way around. On every wall there are pictures, each one a story tells. There are even touchy-feely things and even pens with smells. How anyone could use this room? I haven't got a notion. It seems more like a recipe for some kind of magic potion. Perhaps this room is magic, and we'll cast a special spell so that everyone who enters here will learn so very well. Be they tactile, auditory, or a visual kinesthetic, an impulsive or a global or reflective analytic. No longer need they feel a sense of great frustration when concentrating, processing, and retaining information. That's a lovely poem, which to me describes sensory stories really, really well. So a sensory story isn't something that has to be a big production. A sensory story isn't something that has to be incredibly big or right in your face. A sensory story doesn't have to be a book. It can be something you make up yourself. You may want to make it really touchy-feely. I like books like this, where you have just a little tactile trail to follow. A book may be very visual. This is a book called Hide and Eek. And this is lovely because you just get a torch, a nice big flashlight in the background on this, and it brings up. So, you don't have to be a storyteller. You can make up your own stories. But the main thing a story does is it means that we're communicating with our children. And remember, the best part of a story for our children is you. Thank you very much for listening. Richard Hirstwood, Hirstwood Training. Have a look at our sensory festival this weekend at hirstwood.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.